Oh, here we go. What's up, guys? Welcome to G Live. All right, we got an incredible G who I've had the pleasure of meeting. What's up, brother?
Hey Fabian, how's it doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you for taking some time and joining us on G Live.
Absolutely. How's
Yeah,
the audio? Is the audio good?
it's good. Can you hear me on your end?
I got you.
Cool.
Loud and clear.
So awesome. So thanks for taking some time. Steve has a really incredible background. Had the pleasure of meeting you almost a year ago in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been a bit. It's been a
yeah.
bit.
So it's glad to have you on. Thank you for joining us. Thanks everyone for joining us on this, and we'll get right into it. So, Steve, you reside in Dallas, Texas.
I am. I'm in Dallas and I've been in Texas for, well, I guess since 93. So I've been in here for a minute or
Yeah,
so.
you're a Texan. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
Cool.
grew up in Oklahoma.
In
I
Oklahoma.
grew up in my hometown's Tulsa. I grew up in Oklahoma, finished up school and then came down here. Had an idea that maybe I'd come down here and then go back up to Oklahoma, but I never went back. Stayed here. It's a great
It,
place to be.
that's it. Is Texas a lot more fun than Oklahoma?
There's a lot more things to do in Texas.
Right, you can
Things are a
imagine.
lot bigger. Things are a lot bigger here in Texas
Right,
too.
right. That's cool. Now you are a long time cybersecurity professional, been in the industry a long time. You also tell them a little bit about what you do, in that space, and just everything, some of what you have been up to now for some time.
Yeah, certainly. I started my career off as a programmer, a software developer. I was a C programmer for a while, 6, 7 years. And then I decided I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. Had a good time. I felt like I was pretty good at it, but thought I'd try my thought I'd try a different career path. I ended up at a consulting firm, and the first 3 projects that I got connected to were cybersecurity projects.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so I became a cybersecurity and privacy guy, and that was around 1999 that I got into that, and
Okay.
I've stayed in it ever since.
Right. What could you touch on? Because that was a little over 20 years ago. What did you see? What did you notice about cybersecurity then compared to now? Because and I'm sure you'll agree. I've heard cybersecurity for a number of reasons, right? It's a huge industry. It's highly important. Talk a little bit about just the changes that you've seen in that industry.
Yeah, certainly. Some of the changes are to do with the proliferation of the internet. I mean, the internet was young back then. I know when I got out of college in the early 90s, we were dialing up modems to CompuServe and Prodigy and things like that. And I'd say by the late 90s, internet was coming online, .com stuff happening, and hacking became a real thing. And so that was something that attracted me to the space, was the idea of playing on the red side, we call it the red team, where you're attacking, you're simulating hackers,
Okay.
versus the blue team where you're trying to help people defend against that, right? Red team versus blue team. So it was
Uh,
all interesting to me,
yeah.
and I brought to it what I thought was a unique perspective, in that I was a software developer
Hmm.
before, and the typical path that I had seen to security was through network administration, working on the network, or working on the servers administration. So I had a bit of a different viewpoint coming in, and the things that led me to, from a security perspective, was application security,
Yeah.
where you're looking at the security of web pages and apps and things like that. And that's what, that's really what my background kind of set me up for, even though I took a long way to get there.
Yeah.
Application security got big in say the 2010s. So I spent a lot of time focused in that area. Having been a developer before,
Right.
it's a natural fit for me.
That makes sense. And so then you developed a cybersecurity, a consulting firm for businesses around cybersecurity.
I did. Just over a year ago, I went ahead and went out on my own. I was with
Awesome.
Ernst & Young for a while, managing director in their global cybersecurity practice, and that was
God,
something that was
hold on. He
yeah,
just said,
yeah.
Ernst and Young, guys. For those that don't know, that's a pretty freaking huge company. One of the what is it? Big three,
Big Four is what they
big
call it.
four.
Yeah,
Okay, my fault. Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
big four.
there's
Yeah,
a couple hundred thousand employees with EY around the globe. So yeah, it was a big organization, primarily tax and accounting, but
yeah.
there were a couple thousand of us that were focused on cybersecurity. And so my gig there was to find, cultivate, sell $3 to $5 million worth of cybersecurity services every year, and then service that, build the
To,
teams to actually service that, right? So
to
sales and delivery.
Ernst and Young's clients.
Yep, yep.
Got it. That makes sense. That
So I
makes
left there about a year ago and started my own consulting company, and really as a shell for me to do my work, to do my contracting and consulting work. And so far, so good.
awesome. Do you have? Is it a small team? You keep it lean, or are you growing?
So it's me, but then I was able to get connected to a network here in North Texas that's about 50 other people like me. And so you've got security's kind of there's a broad set of security domains, and you can go deep into a lot of those, but you really don't go deep into all of those, right? It's too big to really master them all. So we've had a good time. Just if we find an opportunity and we need more of ourselves, we just tap the others on the shoulder. If I've got an opportunity and it's something that maybe isn't in my wheelhouse, I can find somebody and work that way. We subcontract for each other, so
That's
that's
cool.
been pretty successful so far.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Yeah. So now, obviously, our topic, being DeFi, and we'll get to that. Guys, I pinned Steve's pretty much brand new site. Is it Proverity? Did I say it right?
You did Proverity Solutions. That's right. Yeah.
Right. Listen. I went and he's gonna talk about his book. I went and got it. So all
Oh
you need
yeah.
here, that's right. So make sure
Right.
I got it. You see it, Steve. You see it.
Thanks.
You can put me on blast if I'm telling you I'll show you the receipt if I had to, but
Thanks.
but
Appreciate that.
go and get it. That's bro. That's what this is about. We're
Yep.
brothers,
Yep.
and we got to help each other out. We're part of this brotherhood. So we'll now in terms of crypto. What attracted you to crypto, and when did you start that process? Was it buying Bitcoin at the beginning? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, certainly. The way I got into crypto and DeFi and things like that, I bought some Bitcoin and some Ethereum and some Litecoin back in 2017. And so our last big, bull bear cycle was there was a run up in 2018, right, where things got exciting and before they went into the bear mode again. So that was the first time I was exposed to it. I mean, what is that? 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And
Yeah.
then, when the excitement wore off, everybody kind of went away from that. But then in the summer of 2020, so 2 years ago,
Yeah.
that was the summer of DeFi, right? And so DeFi, decentralized finance, blew up, and tokens sprung up everywhere, and new projects, and
Right.
let's pump this thing to 100x. And so I was taking what I had learned enough of, if you will, back in 2017, 2018, and was able to just jump right in from a DeFi perspective. It was fascinating to me, first of all, and just being able to be there, watching the proliferation of that. I absolutely, through trial and error, had no choice but to learn about how to secure my wallet. So
Right. And so for those that obviously everyone's heard of Bitcoin, Ethereum, right? Maybe some of the other coins. What is DeFi? For those that don't know, decentralized finance. Can you talk a little? Mention, just break
sure.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about traditional finance, TradFi being the banking system and the financial system and Wall Street and things like that, decentralized finance, or DeFi, is a decentralized version of that TradFi. It's largely unregulated. There's been many years for the traditional finance industry to grow and develop and have government regulations that help control that. DeFi is the wild, wild west. Decentralized finance. Most of the time, there is no physical location. There's no office. There's no company associated with it from a DeFi perspective. There are centralized exchanges, which tend to serve as your on-ramp from fiat, from your typical currency into crypto. They work like a brokerage house would in the TradFi world. They'll take your money and let you buy cryptocurrency tokens, things like that. They can be regulated a little bit. They're the only place with a brick and mortar and offices where the feds can show up and actually enforce things. But in the decentralized finance world, you've got a distributed network of mining and controlling computers that are controlling a particular blockchain, and then developers write code to create tokens that live on that blockchain. And you can buy and trade tokens. You can stake tokens and hope to earn interest rate type yield.
Yeah, right.
So I'll pause there. You got TradFi, you got DeFi, and that's where the crypto space lives in the decentralized.
Right. And then you took your experience and what you've been doing in cybersecurity, and you decided, and we'll obviously talk a little bit about the book and what you're working on, and you obviously married that right with DeFi. So hence, the topic that we got today is, your 5 keys to DeFi security. So if you could just talk about how that happened. What did you just see it naturally? Did you just, sometimes you have an epiphany, like, wow, I didn't think of this sooner. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, some of it's trial and error. You make some mistakes along the way. As I'm dabbling in the DeFi space, you start to see scams that pop up. You start to see how people lose, how their quote unquote wallets get hacked, how they lose their money or lose their tokens. And really from a security perspective, from a cybersecurity perspective, there's nothing really new under the sun. All the same principles apply in your traditional cybersecurity world as it does in the DeFi world. There are different technologies and there are different, points of focus, if you will. But all the concepts are the same. And so I had that from the over 20 years in the cybersecurity space. I certainly understood that. But then working in it, I got to where I understood, hey, you know what? There's probably a handful of things that are critical to make sure you're focused on. And there's probably a common set of threats that you have to be paying attention to. And then one of the things that I'm a big believer of in the cybersecurity space is to be able to not spend 1 minute, 1 penny, $1 more on cybersecurity than you need to, right? Yeah. It's a waste of time. We're all after productivity. We all want to get more productive. We all want to make more sales. We all want to build more widgets, right? And so that's productivity. And so a lot of times there's a trade-off between productivity and security. Sometimes security can come in and slow things down a little bit, right? So there's a balance there, right? So what I see work well is when people take the time to make informed decisions about risk.
Right.
So the way I do that is I'm able to threat model for a particular set of threats.
Okay.
And then I look at my vulnerabilities that could be susceptible to those threats. And it could be just the way I operate.
Yeah.
And then I know that I've got a set of security measures that I can choose from to defend and apply and defend and use only against those things that represent a real threat to me.
And when you say a threat model, is the possibility of what could go wrong?
Exactly, right?
Okay.
Where's it coming from, right? The threat vector, right? So once I started putting this together and thinking about it, really the way I think about regular cybersecurity issues, but through a DeFi lens, I see, you know what? There's 6 common threats to my wallet, to my tokens in the DeFi space.
Okay.
So in the book, I delineate those, describe those, but I do it through a threat modeling lens. And it's a little bit of teach to fish, right? Some people know about threat modeling, others don't. right? But here you're going to come away with being able to do some threat modeling, which lets you know what could be your potential risks.
Okay.
Based on your vulnerabilities, based on what you're trying to accomplish, based on the way you operate. And then you can select only the security measures that you need to protect against those threats that are important to you.
Okay.
And so
yeah.
there's those 5 keys. There's 6 threats. There's 5 keys. We go over that, but then I also go into detail on some of the things that you can do to actually implement those 5 keys to DeFi security.
Cool. And obviously this is all elaborated on in the book, which you guys should definitely get. It's right on when you go to proveritysolutions.com, it's pinned there. It's at the very top of the homepage. Go support our brother who's doing amazing things. Steve, if you can just touch upon, because in the little bit of time that we have, if you could just touch upon those 5 keys, right? So
sure.
So guys have an idea, but guys, make sure that you go support Steve and go to his site and pick up that book.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 5 keys to DeFi security. The first one is to protect your recovery seed.
That's that long phrase, right?
Yeah. So for those that aren't familiar with a recovery seed, if you're installing a wallet that you're going to be managing on your device, when you install that, you get your recovery seed. It's typically a string of words in a certain order. Sometimes there's 12, sometimes there's more. That is how you would recover your wallet if your wallet was somehow lost. Excuse me. If your wallet was somehow lost, or your laptop stolen, or whatever the case may be, your phone lost, you throw your phone in a lake, whatever. You could use those recovery seed words to rebuild and recreate your wallet on another device. So you got to protect that though, because if you gave me your recovery seed, I could quickly recreate your wallet here on my computer, and then I can take
have access to everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So protect your recovery seed. That's the first one.
Right.
Second one is to use 2-factor authentication. And 2-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, that's where you've got something besides your password,
right,
that's required for you to log into a centralized exchange or to your email or anything like that, right? So, there's 3 ways to authenticate somebody: something you know, like a password; something you have, like a token; or something that you are, like your driver's license describes you physically, and that's something that you are. So 2-factor authentication is using at least 2 of those types of factors to authenticate yourself. So password plus a code from an SMS message on your phone, or password from some token generating device that's telling you that one-time password that expires in 30. So use 2FA.
Yeah, and that, by doing that, right, it's like another layer of security in case, let's say, someone gets your password. Is that correct?
Exactly. If somebody gets your password, they can't log into something that's protected with 2FA because they don't have that second factor to authenticate.
Right. That's really important. Okay.
Yep. That's the second one. The third one is to validate websites or decentralized applications, dApps, or people that you're interacting with in the DeFi world before you really interact with them. So there are people coming at you all the time via email, via Telegram, and they're coming at you with the latest and greatest, trying to trick you into giving up your recovery seed, right, in one case. Or they've got an application that looks like some other legitimate application or website, and the whole purpose is to get you to think it's that site and to interact with that site, possibly giving away your recovery keys or some other information that they can use. So just take the time to validate the people.
Right. It's
somebody coming at you that you don't know, from an account somewhere. You don't know if they're who they say they are, right? So that's the third one. Validate people, the applications that you're going to interact with.
Yeah.
The fourth one then is every transaction that you're doing on the blockchain, if you're using your wallet that you manage and control, requires that you approve transactions inside your wallet or your digital wallet.
Yeah.
And so don't approve any wallet transaction where you don't know exactly what's getting ready to happen.
Right.
And so in order to do that, if you've got the token of the day, you've got Acme token, and somebody's generating and building excitement. Get Acme token today. The price is going up tomorrow. They're trying to get you in there, right? Take the time to do some research. This is that DYOR. Everybody's like, oh, it's got a great token. Do your own research. Do the research. Is it a legitimate site? What's going to happen? Are you staking it into some application for 30 days and you can't get it out for 30 days? Can you, is it, you know, I'm going to pull it out in 10 days because the price is dropping, but I'm going to take a 50% penalty. Find out how the development team, how are they making their money? How are they getting paid, right? Know what you're getting into, right? So make sure that you know what is getting ready to happen when you approve those wallet transactions.
That's important. And we're part of a network where we get a lot of education, where we're around a lot of smart men, you know, Steve being one of them. So we get a lot of good information, and hopefully that will deter potential problems down the road. So yes, so cool.
And then the fifth and final is, you know, we talk about concentration risk, and it's really have a plan and implement and use concentration risk mitigation techniques. So concentration risk would be that proverbial putting all your eggs in one basket. And so you put all your eggs in one basket, you lose your basket, you lost all your eggs. You spread those eggs around 5 baskets, you lose one basket, you still got 80% of your eggs, right?
Yeah.
So make sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. Understand what you're doing, and there's a little bit there that's from a security perspective, because it's a little bit contra to what you're doing when you're trying to invest and make money. History tells us that you want to concentrate to find that thing that's going to 400x.
Yeah.
But again, that's why it's a balance. That's why it's a trade-off. If you're looking at managing your risk and the threats to your wallet, think about that fifth leg, that fifth key, concentration risk management techniques.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you. So now the book is brand new. You just
I published it yesterday. I got my ISBN number yesterday. Yesterday. I'm working on getting it published through Amazon, both as an ebook,
right,
and as a paperback, print on demand. That's going to take a little bit. I've actually got somebody working on some cover art for me.
Good.
So my first publication here, what you would get today, the one that you got, is going to have pretty dry cover art, but
that's cool.
We'll pump it up in the future, and I'll send you an update.
I get the updated one.
That's right. That's right.
Securing wallets, 5 keys to DeFi security. So, and again, you can get that, guys, on ProveritySolutions.com. So, Steve, what was the motivation behind writing the book? Was it just a number of things that you saw, personal experience, clients, so forth, that drew, propelled you to want to create this work?
Yeah, there were a couple things driving that, Fabian. One was I was a contributing author to a book about 20 years ago in cybersecurity, and I loved the process, that creation of creating and storyboarding and going. We wrote it as a team. We'd all go our separate ways, write, come back together, put it together, and things like that. So I had written down in my mind that someday I wanted to take on the author role and write my own book. So that was part of the driving factor. Second is getting into DeFi. I just saw the need. People would ask me all the time, what do I need to do to protect my tokens? And it's like, well, it kind of depends on what you're doing, kind of depends on what you're trying to accomplish and things like that. So it started repeating. So people would tap me on the shoulder and ask for help, and I would do some consulting around getting their wallet set up, getting them on board to DeFi. So it became a very repeatable set of things that were having to happen. I started having a lot of similar conversations, and I said, you know what? And then somebody said, hey, why don't you write a book? I said, yeah, good idea. Let me do that.
Are you a fan of, would you recommend cold storage or online? Does it matter? Or? Cold storage,
it also depends, right? So I have some things in cold storage.
when we say cold storage, Steve, you know better, right? Just let them know what cold storage is. Let's
Yeah,
assume.
so you've got a token type device. It's got a little app on it, and it's got a wallet in it. And you transfer your tokens to a device. Got here's my
Kind of like a USB.
here's my hot spare right here, my Trezor device. Inside there's a little token. You plug it in. It's USB. That's cold storage. And the advantage of cold storage is it's not connected to your computer all the time. It's not connected to an app. It's not going to be subject to many of the vulnerabilities that could be exploited in the ecosystem that is your computer.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're playing in DeFi, you're not going to be in cold storage. You're going to be interacting with an application, a website, or a dApp.
Right.
And so there's a soft wallet, they call it. MetaMask is a common one. It's usually connected with a browser, a plug-in to a browser. It operates inside of a browser. I'm completely fine with my security controls around my soft wallet. I understand the pros and cons, and because of that, I'm not quote unquote afraid to use MetaMask. A lot of people are kind of petrified of it, but then I also apply concentration risk. I got some things in cold storage. I got some things in, warm storage. I have very little that I'm storing up in centralized exchanges because of some of the risk associated with that. Does that answer? I like cold storage. I like warm storage too.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And what do you think about, you're hearing like Celsius and some of these other exchanges, hey, you can't, I'm kind of generalizing it, but, because of what's going on now in the economy, hey, you can't withdraw your money right now, for a certain time. So, talk a little bit about that. Like that's, I mean, there's a lot of concern there, right? With a lot of people, if you got a lot of money, a lot of valuable assets there, tied up in, on an exchange.
Sure. Yeah. And that falls into one of the common threats against your wallet that I cover in the book. And to go into a little bit of detail, if you're on an exchange can decide the liquidity is getting tight, and they can decide to freeze your tokens or lock your tokens, or, hey, you can't move your tokens for 5 days, or whatever the case may be, right? And they're doing that to protect themselves. A lot of times they say they might be doing that to protect you as well. That's a risk. And if you are storing on an exchange for some reason, that's a risk that you have to take. But again, I would apply concentration risk for that as well. So make sure you only have a proportion of that exposed that you're willing to lose. And then the other thing that can come into play there that wouldn't necessarily be an exchange freezing tokens would be somebody gaming the liquidity of a token, right? Where you can transfer into and out of that token via some other token, a stable token or something like that. Somebody gaming the liquidity could also drive an exchange to freeze, but it could also just flat out dry up your liquidity, and you're left holding some nearly worthless or worthless tokens like a Celsius, like UST and Luna thing that happened a month.
Yeah, as they say, do your own research. Like
Right.
bold it, double underline it. Very important. Steve, how big is the cybersecurity industry? What, like, is it a $1 trillion industry? How big is it? And if you could just share, maybe just before we move on to the next subject, kind of how important is it that we really pay attention to that part of the world?
Yeah. So it's one of those things where we're in the billions. Like, we're talking, like, depends on what you include in cybersecurity, user ID management, physical, things like that. I mean, it's 50 billion or north of that. There's I guess what I would say is, it's an interesting space, right? There's not enough qualified people to fill the job openings, and there hasn't been for some time. And so um, it's a place where you can get into. If you're looking for a place to go, you can get into it, wedge into it. There's a lot of upside opportunities there. But the one thing that strikes me in what I see is there's a lack of business leadership, I think, prevalent at the leadership level in cybersecurity.
Okay.
And the way that manifests itself is you'll get somebody that works their way up into a leadership position based on their technical chops and their technical competencies.
Okay.
But when they get up there and they start talking to their peer executives in a corporation or organization,
right,
they're a little bit disconnected from the business mission. And like I mentioned earlier, sometimes security can actually slow down productivity, and nobody really wants that. It's a hard conversation to have sometimes at that executive level,
right,
to get investment, but they get bogged down. They get seen as a blocker to business progress as opposed to an enabler of business progress. And I think that's a big challenge in the industry as a whole. So if you've got people that, a lot of people will say the classic way to get into it is to look at it from a technical perspective and build on top of that technical perspective to become a security technology guru. I think there's another path in there, which is to take somebody from a leadership perspective, somebody who understands not only security but business, and they can marry those two and have more business-driven conversations about it. So,
and be able to communicate those points, not getting too technical, right? Sometimes you can't get too technical, but you have to be able to communicate, and obviously drive points home and sell it, right? Sell the mission,
Yeah, absolutely. So when you combine that lack of talent, you combine the lack of some of the business level leadership, it's a situation where it's an industry where there's a massive opportunity to sell service and deliver services very successfully in the space.
There you go. So anyone that's out here that's watching this afterwards, interested in cybersecurity, DM Steve on this website too. You'll find his email. Definitely get his book. On DeFi security at ProveritySolutions.com. I pinned it there for you guys. When you go to the site, right at the very top. So Steve, now after a long day, you're winding down. The work's done for the day. We've talked about espresso martinis. We talked about some cocktails. What's your favorite cocktail when it's that time?
I tell you, I'm an old-fashioned guy. That's my go-to. I'm a big fan of the espresso martini for sure. I think a little bit about the way I think about the espresso martini is it's caffeine and vodka. Yeah. And so, at that blue collar level, it's Red Bull and vodka. When you go up a little bit into that sophisticated, a little bit of that, societal level stuff, you're looking at that as a martini. So I do like that.
Yeah, I'm an old fashioned guy too. When I can't, I'm not really sure. Old reliable, old fashioned, it does it. Absolutely. You can't go wrong. You know what I mean?
I've got my recipe and I like that. I like to switch up different whiskeys sometimes. Okay. And sometimes I'll go with a rye.
Okay.
But there's something that interests me when I find some combination and you just, you take that sip and you taste the whiskey, you taste a little bit of sweet, you get some of the aroma, some of the wood subtleties. It's nice. And I'm not a big Scotch drinker, a big whiskey drinker straight. I do like that blend of the different flavors. But
yeah. Cool. That's awesome. So in terms of, before we wrap up, and I definitely appreciate you joining me on G Live here. You've really shared a lot of great stuff, a lot of things to think about. Again, guys, if you're playing in the crypto and the DeFi space, please, this is going to be recorded. It'll be posted. Go through it. Go to his site. You also have a free download, right, on your site.
It's pending.
Okay.
I'm going to build that out in the next 24 hours. It's going to be an excerpt from the book, and I'm looking at 6 common
guys, forget about it. Just get the book. Just support our brother. Just get the book. Get the book because you're gonna get that and a lot more. So, it costs nothing for a couple of dollars, and you're on your set. But yeah, definitely, I understand. You want to have a little lead magnet there, to build some interest. Steve, man, I really appreciate you being on here. before we wrap up, we like to talk about your one thing. When I got a chance to meet you in person about a year ago, you as well as so many other G's in our special brotherhood. You're definitely a professional. You're a serious guy, but personable, approachable. And now you have a baseball background as well. Did you play, coach, or?
I played a little bit when I was younger. Played some softball after I got out of college and things like that. But I played several sports. Baseball, though, I like baseball from some of the lessons you can apply to life. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we were preparing for this talk, you used a beautiful metaphor, baseball metaphor for what makes a professional. And if you could just share that with the audience, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Fabian, you and I were talking ahead of time. It's like, what makes a professional, right? What are the secrets, or what have I seen that makes somebody professional? And I think about it like your typical or your prototypical outstanding professional baseball player. They call them a 5-tool player, and what they'll do is somebody that can run fast, they can throw well, they can field the ball well, they can hit for average, and they can hit for power. So you get that player, right? You're talking about somebody who has a chance to be a superstar, at the major league level. And so when I think about a professional's professional, right? Somebody that I look at and I say, hey, you spend a little time with them, you realize they're professional. I think there's a 5-tool kind of a fit there, right? One is they're physically fit, right? Because that matters, right? It's pretty impressive to meet somebody. They're physically fit, but they've got these other tools that go with it. You can see they're mentally tough, right? They've learned some lessons. They know how to work hard. And then 3, you're looking at somebody who understands it's not just communication, but it's how to manage energy transfer. Right. Communication is a type of energy transfer, but also it knows how to manage their own energy.
Right.
You energy up when you need energy up, and you energy down when you need
absolutely.
It's things like that. Yeah. Now take somebody who has those 3 tools, and they have a thirst for knowledge combined with the humility to take that step back to be a beginner, to actually take on new knowledge. And you get somebody like that who's also spent the 10,000 hours that's required to become an expert in some marketable set of skills.
Right.
That becomes a powerhouse. It's in a positive way, right? It's a lethal combination of somebody who's absolutely a professional.
There you go. And it's checking all the boxes. So it could be that person that brings something to the table. That's great, but they build on it. They're open to learning, and they're well-rounded. And that's I never thought about that. And you're absolutely right, though. Absolutely right. And
5-tool pro.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we know some people like that. So that's amazing. Amazing. That's a beautiful metaphor. Steve, anything else you want to share in closing here? I mean, I've learned a lot. I know our audience has. Thank you again for making some time. And again, guys, make sure ProveritySolutions.com, get that book. Securing wallets, 5 keys to DeFi security, a guide to securing personal crypto wallets. Very important, very important. But also, Steve, can they also reach out to you for if they're looking for consulting around cybersecurity, or are you doing that? Okay.
Sure. Absolutely, Fabian. Yeah, and if you look in my Instagram bio, I've got a link. I've got a couple links there. I'm Steve Lima Bravo. I'm also Steve Lima Bravo at Twitter. Got links there. Right. And you talked about ProveritySolutions.com. I'm also looking into launching a bit of a brand of socials that I'm calling the Secure Muser, where I'm musing about security. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, there you go.
But for now, I'm pretty early on in the process of getting the book launched and getting some of the branding launched with the book. Right. But Fabian, I appreciate you having me on here.
Of course, brother. Always.
And I'd love to have conversations with anybody who has questions or just who has commentary about what's going on in the DeFi security space.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, guys. Make sure you get that book. Support Steve. Again, Steve, thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, we'll be talking. This was a lot of fun. This is very informative, and I definitely appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thanks, Fabian.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. Take care.